Have you ever wondered how one person's voice, seemingly small in the midst of global power struggles, can shift the course of history? On October 9, 1950, in a quiet town in Vermont, Jody Williams was born, a woman who would one day challenge governments, confront the arms industry, and inspire the world to believe that the pursuit of peace is not only possible, but necessary. Her story is not one of privilege or predictable success, but of relentless courage, stubborn hope, and the audacity to confront one of the deadliest weapons of the modern age: landmines. Today, in this episode, we'll explore the life of Jody Williams, her early beginnings, her rise as an activist, and how her campaign led to a groundbreaking international treaty and ultimately the Nobel Peace Prize in 1997. But more importantly, we'll reflect on what her journey teaches us about the power of persistence and the impact of collective action. Jody Williams did not grow up in the halls of political power, nor was she the child of diplomats or elite academics. She grew up in Brattleboro, Vermont, a small New England town surrounded by forests and mountains. Her upbringing was modest, but it was here that she first developed the stubborn independence and sharp sense of justice that would later define her career. As a young girl, she witnessed inequality and prejudice in everyday life, and these observations sparked a natural instinct to speak out. Later, as she pursued her education, she found herself drawn to international issues, to the ways in which decisions made by powerful governments reverberated across the globe, often crushing the most vulnerable communities. But Jody Williams was not content with simply learning about injustice. She wanted to confront it. During the 1980s, Williams became deeply involved in political activism. This was a time when Central America was torn apart by civil wars, and U.S. foreign policy played a decisive and often devastating role in the region. Jody Williams joined solidarity movements, campaigning against American military involvement and advocating for human rights. Her work was dangerous, emotionally draining, and often thankless, but it gave her a first-hand understanding of what armed conflict did to ordinary people: the destruction of families, the silencing of voices, the long shadows of trauma that remained long after the battles ended. It was during this period that she began to focus on a weapon that epitomized the cruelty of modern warfare: landmines. Imagine walking through a field that looks peaceful, green, and empty. You take one wrong step, and in an instant, your life is changed forever. This is the reality of landmines. Unlike bombs dropped in war, which explode in the heat of conflict, landmines remain buried in the earth long after soldiers have gone home. They wait silently, turning farms into death traps, villages into danger zones, and childhood play into tragedy. By the 1990s, landmines were scattered across dozens of countries: Afghanistan, Cambodia, Mozambique, Angola, places where civilians were the ones paying the price. Millions of unexploded landmines remained hidden, ready to maim farmers, mothers, and children. This was the weapon Jody Williams decided to fight. In 1992, Jody Williams became the founding coordinator of the International Campaign to Ban Landmines, ICBL. At first, it was not a global movement. It was a collection of 6 small, non-governmental organizations, 6 groups with limited resources but unlimited determination. Williams became the voice, the strategist, and the relentless driver behind the campaign. She organized meetings, built coalitions, lobbied governments, and galvanized public opinion. What made her approach unique was her refusal to accept the old excuse: "That's just how things are in war." She believed in a clear and uncompromising message: landmines were not legitimate weapons, they were indiscriminate killers, and they had to be banned. At first, the idea of banning landmines seemed impossible. Governments were skeptical, military leaders dismissed activists as naive. But Williams persisted. She understood that change often begins at the edges, through public pressure, through ordinary citizens demanding accountability. By 1997, the movement had grown into a powerful international coalition of over 1,000 organizations in more than 60 countries. That year, representatives gathered in Ottawa, Canada, to negotiate a treaty that would change history, the Ottawa Treaty, also known as the Mine Ban Treaty. On December 3, 1997, 122 countries signed the treaty, committing to ban the use, stockpiling, production, and transfer of anti-personnel landmines. It was a monumental achievement, the kind of diplomatic breakthrough that few thought possible. And at the heart of it stood Jody Williams. That same year, the Norwegian Nobel Peace Committee awarded the Nobel Peace Prize jointly to Jody Williams and the International Campaign to Ban Landmines. In their announcement, the committee praised the campaign for changing a ban on landmines from a vision into a feasible reality. Jody Williams, standing on the Nobel stage, did not frame the victory as hers alone. She reminded the world that it was the work of countless activists, survivors, and ordinary people who refused to stay silent. She accepted the award as a symbol of what collective action could achieve when driven by moral clarity and persistence. But Jody Williams did not stop in 1997. She has continued to speak out against militarism and injustice. She has championed women's rights, human rights, and the idea that true peace is not simply the absence of war, but the presence of justice, opportunity, and dignity. Her voice has sometimes been sharp, even confrontational. She has often challenged political leaders to live up to their promises. But this honesty, this refusal to soften her message, is part of what makes her such a powerful figure. Williams also became a strong advocate for the role of women in peacebuilding, co-founding the Nobel Women's Initiative with other female laureates to amplify women's voices in global politics. So what can we learn from Jody Williams on this October 9th, the day she was born? First, that change rarely comes from the top. It begins with ordinary people refusing to accept the status quo. Second, that persistence matters. Governments at first laughed at the idea of banning landmines. Within 5 years, they signed a treaty that reshaped international law. And third, that peace is not abstract. It is not just a dream for speeches or slogans. Peace is practical. It is clearing a minefield so a farmer can return to his land. It is ensuring a child can walk to school without fear. It is replacing fear with dignity and silence with hope. Jody Williams' story is proof that one person born in a small town in Vermont on October 9th can change the world. Not with an army, not with vast sums of money, but with determination, clarity, and the courage to believe that humanity deserves better. So as we reflect on her life and her legacy, we are left with a question. What injustices exist today that seem impossible to solve, and who among us will be the next Jody Williams to confront them? Because history tells us this. Change doesn't come from waiting. It comes from acting. And sometimes it starts with just one voice that refuses to be silent.